Hey lady, you lost? This is a military facility, not a senior center. Petty Officer Ryan Morrison's voice cut through the Naval Special Warfare Command mess hall like a rusty blade. The muscle-bound SEAL stood with 3 teammates, their tan uniforms pristine, chests decorated with ribbons, and the coveted trident pin. Their target sat alone at table 7, a small woman with silver-streaked brown hair, wearing a navy cardigan and reading glasses. At 62, Kayla Mitchell looked more like someone's grandmother than anything belonging in SEAL country. Morrison smirked at his buddies. "Ma'am, I think you wandered into the wrong building. The family waiting area is in the admin building about half a mile that way." He pointed with casual dismissiveness. The woman didn't look up. She reached for her coffee cup with a steady hand, took a measured sip, and continued reading. The calculated indifference threw gasoline on Morrison's ego. Morrison stepped closer, his 6 feet 4 inches frame casting a shadow over the table. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see some identification. This is a restricted facility." Kaylin finally looked up. Her hazel eyes, sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses, assessed Morrison with clinical precision. She reached into her cardigan pocket and produced a laminated badge, setting it on the table without a word. Morrison leaned forward, squinting. "Psychological evaluation contractor," he read aloud, his swagger faltering slightly. Petty Officer Jake Williams laughed nervously. "Holy cow, Tank, looks like somebody called in the head doctor." The mess hall began developing pockets of unusual quiet. This wasn't just another case of military bravado. Petty Officer Alex Rodriguez flanked Kaylin's other side. "Ma'am, what exactly are you evaluating here?" Kaylin lifted her clipboard slightly, revealing official documents bearing multiple classification stamps. Her movements were economical, professional, entirely too calm. Petty Officer Danny Murphy shifted uncomfortably. "Tank, maybe we should just let the lady do her job." Morrison's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, I don't care what that badge says. You're in our house now, and I need to understand what you're doing here." Master Chief Kellaway, stationed near the coffee counter, had been observing quietly. At 48, he developed an instinct for recognizing trouble. The woman's position at table 7 wasn't random. It provided clear sight lines to all entrances, backed against a solid wall with multiple exit routes. These were tactical decisions, not the choices of a confused civilian. Morrison leaned forward, hands flat on the table. "Look, lady, I don't know what kind of evaluation you think you're conducting, but this is Team 6 territory. We don't answer to civilian contractors." Williams stepped closer. "Maybe you should pack up your little clipboard and find somewhere else to conduct your business." For the first time, Kaylin's expression shifted, a small smile at the corners of her mouth. She set down her pen with deliberate precision. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice carrying quiet authority, "I appreciate your concern for operational security. It demonstrates essential vigilance." But there was something else beneath the diplomatic language. Rodriguez, trained to analyze communication patterns, caught the undertone immediately. This wasn't nervous deference. This was confidence. "Ma'am," Morrison pressed, "I'm going to need you to explain exactly what authority you're operating under." Kaylin took another measured sip of coffee. "The classification level of my assignment precludes discussing specific operational details. However, my presence has been properly authorized." Murphy exchanged glances with Rodriguez. The contractor's language, classification level, operational details, wasn't typical civilian vocabulary. Williams decided to escalate. "Ma'am, this facility doesn't receive unscheduled civilian visitors. I'm going to have to ask you to gather your materials and accompany us to the Master-at-Arms office." Kaylin began organizing her documents. Then she looked up. "Petty Officer Williams, before we proceed, perhaps you should consider whether your current course aligns with operational standards expected of SEAL Team 6 personnel." The specific identification of their unit sent a chill through the group. This wasn't publicly available information. "How do you know Williams's rank?" Morrison demanded. "And how do you know our unit designation?" Kayla made a brief notation on her document. Whatever evaluation she was conducting, their behavior was being documented in real time. Rodriguez stepped back. If the contractor had legitimate access to classified personnel information, her presence was almost certainly authorized well above their clearance. Ma'am, perhaps we could contact your supervising authority to verify the scope of your evaluation. That's reasonable, Kalen replied. However, my evaluation specifically requires observing natural team dynamics without prior notification. Advanced warning would compromise the assessment data. The word subjects hit them like a physical blow. They weren't dealing with an unwelcome visitor. They were targets of an official evaluation. Tank, Murphy whispered urgently. I think we need to reassess this situation. But Morrison's pride made retreat impossible. Too many people were watching. Ma'am, I don't care what kind of evaluation you think you're conducting. This is my team, and I don't answer to civilian oversight. Kalen folded her hands. Petty Officer Morrison, your understanding of proper channels needs updating. Perhaps this conversation would benefit from your commanding officer's presence. Williams moved to Morrison's shoulder. Think, maybe she's right. Maybe we should get the Master Chief involved. Morrison noticed Kellaway moving toward them. Senior oversight would force him to justify his actions through official channels. Ma'am, Morrison said, making one final attempt, I'm giving you one last opportunity to explain your presence and provide proper documentation. If you can't, you'll have to leave. Kalen lifted the top page, revealing official seals and classification markings. Petty Officer Morrison, the scope of my evaluation encompasses team leadership, decision-making under pressure, and adherence to protocols when interacting with authorized personnel. Your performance in all three areas has been noted. The revelation that their confrontation was itself part of the evaluation created crisis. Every word, every action had been analyzed by someone with authority to affect their careers. Rodriguez grabbed Morrison's arm. Tank, we need to stop this now. Everything we've done will be reviewed by command. But Morrison had passed rational calculation. Lady, I don't know what game you're playing, but this ends now. He reached for Kalen's wrist. The physical contact crossed a legal line, transforming the dispute into assault on a federal contractor. Kalen's response was swift. Her free hand moved to Morrison's wrist, applying pressure to a nerve point that caused immediate, intense pain. The technique was precise, controlled, unmistakably advanced combat training. Morrison dropped to one knee, face contorted. The sudden reversal sent stunned silence through the crowd. Holy cow, Williams breathed. Kalen maintained pressure for exactly 3 seconds, then released. Petty Officer Morrison, physical assault on federal contractors conducting authorized evaluations is a serious violation of military and civilian law. Morrison struggled to his feet, flushed with pain and humiliation. Ma'am, Rodriguez said quickly, stepping between them, I apologize for my teammates' actions. We clearly misunderstood your presence here. Kalen made another notation. Morrison's assault and Rodriguez's damage control were both being documented. Master Chief Kellaway accelerated his approach, recognizing the situation had moved beyond peer correction into official disciplinary action. Ma'am, Williams said desperately. Perhaps we could start over? Kalen looked up. Petty Officer Williams, the purpose of this evaluation is observing authentic behavior under stress. Starting over would compromise the assessment data. Murphy stepped forward. Ma'am, what exactly will be in your evaluation report? Kalen's smile returned. Petty Officer Murphy, evaluation reports are submitted directly to operational commanders. The specific content is classified above your access level. The implications hit simultaneously. Their behavior would be reviewed by officers with authority to affect their clearances, assignments, and continued service. Morrison made a desperate attempt. Ma'am, perhaps we could discuss this privately? Kalen's expression hardened. Petty Officer Morrison, any attempt to influence official evaluation procedures constitutes obstruction of federal oversight. I strongly advise limiting further comments. Rodriguez recognized the situation had moved beyond salvage. Ma'am, we apologize for any inconvenience. We'll return to our duties and allow you to complete your evaluation. It was complete surrender. Kalen made a final notation. Gentlemen, thank you for your cooperation. Your natural responses have provided valuable assessment data. The dismissal was unmistakable. 4 elite warriors had been professionally outmaneuvered by a small woman with a clipboard. Master Chief Kellaway reached Table 7. Ma'am, I'm Master Chief Kellaway. I apologize for any procedural irregularities. Master Chief, your concern is noted. However, my evaluation required observing unmodified behavioral patterns. Prior notification would have compromised the data. Kellaway nodded, understanding the implications. Command above his level had authorized surveillance without his knowledge. The mess hall remained unusually quiet as Kaylin gathered her materials and stood. Her movements signaled completion of immediate objectives. Master Chief, she said, I appreciate your facility's cooperation. Your personnel's responses have provided valuable data for operational readiness improvements. The statement suggested improvements were needed, that current performance was inadequate. As Kaylin prepared to leave, her departure was interrupted by the main doors opening. Captain Barnes, the base commander, strode in with controlled urgency, followed by Commander Hayes, the SEAL Team 6 commanding officer. The entrance of 2 senior officers during routine lunch created immediate tension. Personnel assumed positions of attention. Kaylin paused near the exit, her expression shifting to professional alertness. Ma'am, Captain Barnes said, his voice carrying across the silent room. I need to speak with you immediately regarding your evaluation activities. Command level review was already underway. Commander Hayes moved beside Barnes, his attention shifting between Kaylin and Morrison's team. Kaylin approached with professional composure. Captain Barnes, Commander Hayes, I assume you've received preliminary assessment data? Barnes nodded grimly. Ma'am, we need to discuss the scope and implications of your findings. This has command attention at levels extending well beyond facility management. Hayes stepped forward. Ma'am, I need to understand the specific behavioral patterns and performance deficiencies identified. Kaylin's response was measured. Commander, detailed findings are classified. However, I can confirm significant deficiencies were observed in authority recognition, stress response, and adherence to procedures when interacting with authorized oversight personnel. The summary hit like a physical blow. Barnes addressed Kaylin directly. Ma'am, based on your preliminary assessment, what are your immediate recommendations regarding Team 6 operational status? Captain, formal recommendations will be in my comprehensive report. However, observed deficiencies raise questions about current readiness levels and may require command review of deployment schedules and mission assignments. Rodriguez, Williams, and Murphy exchanged panicked glances. The contractor was recommending their team be removed from operational status. Hayes's expression darkened. Ma'am, I need to understand the specific scope of authority under which you're conducting these evaluations. Kaylin extracted a document bearing multiple official seals. Commander, my evaluation activities are conducted under direct authority from Naval Special Warfare Command with oversight responsibility extending to operational readiness assessment and personnel performance review. Hayes examined the documentation, his expression shifting to shock as he recognized the authorization scope. Barnes read over his shoulder, face pale. Holy cow! This is authorized at flag officer level. The revelation transformed the situation. This wasn't routine oversight. This was high-level command evaluation with potential implications for unit structure and mission capabilities. Kellaway stepped forward. Captain, what does this mean for facility operations? Barnes handed the documentation back. Master Chief, this evaluation was authorized as part of comprehensive Special Operations Readiness Assessment. Findings will be reviewed at Naval Special Warfare Command level with potential implications for operational assignments and unit structure. Hayes addressed Kaylin. Ma'am, I need to understand whether your evaluation includes assessment of command oversight and facility management. Commander, evaluation protocols include comprehensive assessment of all factors affecting operational readiness. Command oversight, facility procedures, and personnel management are all relevant to unit effectiveness. Not only had Morrison's team failed, but questions were being raised about the command climate that allowed such behavior. Morrison returned from wherever he'd retreated, his expression shifting from anger to horror as he recognized Barnes and Hayes. "Petty Officer Morrison," Barnes said, gesturing him forward, "you need to join this conversation immediately." Morrison approached with obvious reluctance. Hayes addressed him directly. "Petty Officer, I understand you had a physical confrontation with our contractor during her evaluation activities." Morrison's response was careful. "Sir, there was a misunderstanding regarding the contractor's authority. When I attempted to escort her for credential verification, she responded with defensive techniques." Kalen's professional demeanor took on an edge. Commander Hayes, Petty Officer Morrison's account omits his initial dismissive comments, his unauthorized identification demand, his threat of forced removal, and his decision to initiate unwanted physical contact despite clear verbal warnings. Barnes turned to Morrison with controlled anger. "Petty Officer, are you suggesting your physical contact with a federal contractor conducting authorized evaluation was justified?" Morrison's face went pale. "Sir, I may have misinterpreted the situation and used poor judgment." Hayes addressed the assembled personnel. "Ladies and gentlemen, what occurred here today represents serious failure in recognizing legitimate authority and following established protocols." Kalen stepped forward. "Commander, if I may add context to the evaluation findings." Hayes nodded. "Ma'am, please proceed." Kalen surveyed the silent mess hall. "Gentlemen, my evaluation activities were authorized to assess operational readiness and behavioral patterns. The focus included response to authority, decision-making under stress, and adherence to protocols when confronting unfamiliar situations." Rodriguez raised his hand. "Ma'am, was our entire interaction planned as part of your evaluation protocol?" Petty Officer Rodriguez, evaluation protocols require observing authentic behavioral responses. However, the specific nature and escalation exceeded anticipated parameters and provided more comprehensive data than originally planned. Hayes stepped forward. "Ma'am, I believe facility personnel would benefit from understanding the full scope of your background and authority." Kalen considered carefully. "Commander, in the interest of educational value and operational improvement, I'm authorized to provide limited background information." Barnes addressed the assembled personnel. "Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to receive information that will help you understand both the scope of today's evaluation and the serious implications of the behavior you witnessed." Kalen moved to where her voice would carry clearly. "Gentlemen, my name is Kalen Mitchell. I served 22 years in the United States Navy, retiring as Master Chief Petty Officer. My final assignment was Senior Instructor at Naval Special Warfare Training Center, where I was responsible for designing and implementing the current curriculum used in SEAL training programs." The revelation hit like a physical blow. The woman they had dismissed was not only a veteran, but had created the very training programs that forged their capabilities. Morrison's face went ashen. He had assaulted someone responsible for training the instructors who trained him. Hayes stepped forward, studying Kalen's face with growing intensity. "Ma'am, before we proceed, are you Master Chief Kalen Mitchell, call sign Phoenix, former senior instructor at Naval Special Warfare Training Center?" Kalen's slight nod confirmed it. Hayes came to rigid attention and rendered the sharpest salute the mess hall had ever witnessed. "Master Chief Mitchell, it is an honor, ma'am. You saved my career during Hell Week, Class 237. I was ready to ring the bell on day 4 when you pulled me aside and told me that quitting was just giving up on the teammates counting on me." The salute held for 5 seconds before Kalen returned it with equal precision, her military bearing suddenly on full display despite civilian clothes. Hayes lowered his salute, but maintained attention. "Ma'am, for the benefit of facility personnel, would you elaborate on your specific role in SEAL training development?" Kalen nodded. "Commander, during my tenure as senior instructor, I was responsible for developing psychological evaluation protocols, stress response training methodologies, and behavioral assessment criteria used in candidate selection and ongoing readiness evaluation. My work included designing the scenarios and evaluation criteria currently used to assess SEAL team operational readiness." She hadn't just been an instructor, she'd created the very standards by which they were being evaluated. Rodriguez managed to find his voice. Ma'am, does that mean you designed the evaluation protocols currently being used to assess our team? Kalen's smile was slightly ironic. Petty Officer Rodriguez, the psychological evaluation protocols used in today's assessment were indeed based on methodologies I developed. Your team's responses provided excellent examples of both positive and negative behavioral patterns used in current training scenarios. They have become case studies in their own training programs. Williams raised his hand. Ma'am, what specific behavioral patterns did our team demonstrate? Kalen considered carefully. Petty Officer Williams, your team demonstrated several concerning patterns. Failure to recognize legitimate authority. Escalation rather than de-escalation when confronting uncertain situations. Inappropriate intimidation tactics against authorized personnel, and resort to physical force when verbal dominance was challenged. Barnes addressed Morrison directly. Petty Officer Morrison, you now understand that your physical contact with Master Chief Mitchell constituted assault on a senior enlisted veteran who has contributed more to special operations training than most officers achieve in entire careers. Morrison's voice was barely audible. Sir, I had no knowledge of Master Chief Mitchell's background. However, that doesn't excuse my behavior. Hayes turned to the broader assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, today's events provide valuable lessons about assumptions, authority, and professional behavior. Master Chief Mitchell's evaluation will include recommendations for training improvements based on observed deficiencies. Kalen addressed Hayes. Commander, my evaluation activities at this facility are essentially complete. However, based on observed deficiencies, I will be recommending comprehensive review of authority recognition training and stress response protocols for all special operations personnel. Kellaway stepped forward. Ma'am, speaking for facility leadership, we appreciate your professional assessment and welcome recommendations for operational improvement. Barnes addressed the personnel. Effective immediately, all facility personnel will participate in mandatory training regarding interaction with authorized oversight personnel and recognition of legitimate authority. Kalen gathered her portfolio. Commander Hayes, Captain Barnes, I want to thank you for your cooperation with this evaluation exercise. The behavioral data collected will contribute significantly to operational readiness improvements throughout Naval Special Warfare Command. Rodriguez approached Kalen with respect and humility. Ma'am, on behalf of our team, I want to apologize for our failure to recognize your authority and experience. We clearly have significant learning to do. Kalen's response was gracious. Petty Officer Rodriguez, authentic learning often requires challenging experiences that reveal areas needing improvement. Your team's responses today will contribute to training improvements that benefit all special operations personnel. Williams and Murphy joined Rodriguez. Ma'am, Williams said, we hope our failures today will contribute to improvements that prevent other teams from making similar mistakes. Morrison finally approached, body language reflecting complete humiliation. Master Chief Mitchell, I want to apologize not just for my behavior today, but for failing to live up to the standards you helped establish for special operations personnel. Kalen's response was measured. Petty Officer Morrison, military service provides opportunities for growth throughout our careers. Today's experience can contribute to your development as a leader if you choose to learn from it rather than simply regret it. Hayes addressed Morrison's team. Gentlemen, you will report to my office at 1,500 hours for comprehensive review of today's events and discussion of corrective measures. Your operational status is suspended pending completion of mandatory training and behavioral assessment. Barnes added, additionally, all 4 team members will participate in comprehensive training regarding authority recognition, stress management, and appropriate interaction with oversight personnel before returning to operational duties. Kalen prepared for final departure. Kellaway approached. Ma'am, will there be follow-up evaluation activities to assess the effectiveness of corrective measures? Master Chief, follow-up evaluation activities are determined by command authority based on implementation progress. Facilities that demonstrate effective corrective action typically require less intensive oversight than those showing continued deficiencies. As Kalen moved toward the exit, Hayes made one final announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, today's events demonstrate the importance of maintaining professional standards regardless of circumstances. Master Chief Mitchell's evaluation has provided valuable learning opportunities that will improve our operational effectiveness. Kalen paused at the exit and turned. Gentlemen, Special Operations personnel represent the finest traditions of military service. Today's experiences provide opportunities to recommit to those traditions and standards that make you truly elite warriors. As Kalen departed, her portfolio containing evaluation data that would reshape training protocols, the remaining personnel began processing the full implications. Morrison's team faced suspended operational status, mandatory training, and formal disciplinary action. But beyond individual accountability, the entire facility would implement systematic improvements. Kellaway began developing training protocols to address authority recognition deficiencies. Hayes initiated review of unit procedures. Barnes prepared reports for higher command. The confrontation that began with casual disrespect had revealed systematic deficiencies requiring comprehensive corrective action. But it also demonstrated the continuing influence of senior professionals like Kalen Mitchell, whose contributions extended far beyond their active service careers. 3 weeks later, Ryan Morrison sat in civilian clothes on a bench outside Naval Special Warfare Command, staring at the facility where his career had ended. Court-martial conviction for assault on a federal contractor, dishonorable discharge, loss of security clearance, and forfeiture of veteran benefits. Most devastating was learning the full scope of Master Chief Mitchell's contributions. Every standard he'd failed, every protocol he'd violated had been established by the woman he had dismissed and assaulted. Morrison noticed a familiar figure approaching. Kalen Mitchell, carrying the same leather portfolio, walked with professional confidence. She altered her path toward him. Morrison stood respectfully. "Ma'am, I wanted to thank you for the letter you sent to my court-martial proceedings. Your recommendation for rehabilitation probably prevented harsher consequences." "Ryan," she said, using his first name, "military service teaches us mistakes have consequences, but they also provide opportunities for growth. Your actions were unacceptable, but they don't define your potential for future contribution. Ma'am, I've spent 3 weeks learning about your service record. I realize I didn't just assault a contractor that day. I attacked everything I stood for as a professional warrior. Ryan, Special Operations training forges warriors capable of difficult decisions under stress, but requires maintaining professional standards regardless of circumstances. That day, you forgot both your training and principles.